Hello and welcome back to Zoom Bites. We are going to do a recap of what we did in class, which would be a carbonara and garlic bread. So let's do this. Here we go.
She got a smile that seems to...
First thing for the carbonara, we use some pancetta. I just went to the deli at H-E-B, had them slice it on like a number 3 or number 4, and we're just going to chop it up thick. So with the pancetta, it's cut on a 3. I think I prefer it on a 4. If you go to H-E-B deli, tell them to cut it on a 4. Your knife, remember, choke up on it. Hold your knife like this, never like this, and just big chunks across. Okay, that's it. So for your garlic, remember we had a big clove when we put it in a towel and then we smashed it, and then it comes out like this, and then we just take off the skin. Okay. So when you get to this point, easy way to crush it. If you don't have a garlic crusher, which I recommend you get in, you can just put your knife down on it like that, hit it down like that, crush it, and then go across. You can chop it fine, unless you want bigger chunks. If you like garlic, big chunks of garlic, then do big chunks, right? Reason why we don't slice it, reason why we crush it at first is because it's a lot less chopping time. Because if you slice it, your knife is so sharp that it's going to take a lot longer time to cut all this and mince it to look like that, right? So that's the reason why we crush it. Next, we're going to grate some cheese, okay? So for the class, we use Pecorino Romano, something like that. And we use a Parmesan Reggiano, which I don't have in its little wrapper, but it kind of looks like that. It all looks similar. It's dry, like a Parmesan cheese, right? And these, the Parmesan Reggiano and Pecorino Romano, are really flavorful cheeses. Like if you start with good cheese, it's going to taste better end product. So start with good cheese, okay? And here's how we deal with this. All right, best thing for your cheeses is get something like this. It's called a microplane. You could get at any culinary store, or maybe they even have them at H-E-B. They're like $10. They're the best things ever for fancy or shaved cheese, right? We just get this and we go over. And we're going to add a lot. So the more cheese you add to this dish, the more flavor it's going to have, right? So we could add, like, let's say a half cup of this Parmesan Reggiano, and then you could do a half cup of Pecorino. And then if it's still not enough after it's all said and done, and your pasta's done, and you're like, I want more flavor, you can always add more at the end, right? So that's it. We just kind of shave cheese in this bowl. And we move on to the next step, which is eggs. Our next step is eggs. We did this for a family of 4. So what I did is I used 2 whole eggs. And this is for the carbonara once again. 2 whole eggs, and then we separate an egg yolk, right? We showed you in class how to separate egg yolk. Then we just use an egg yolk. What this does is it makes the dish really rich, and it's classic in the dish, right? Eggs, and then we just whisk it around. And that's basically your sauce for carbonara. That's the base of your sauce. Now in our class, we added cream just to give it a little more oomph, right? But if you were doing a carbonara, this would be the sauce. Then you just temper your pasta into this, and you're basically done, you know? All right, cooking the carbonara. Got a pan. We're going to turn it on high. This is kind of a non-stick. If you have a traditional pan that sticks, same thing. It all works. And depending on how much pasta you're serving for your family is how big you want your pan, right? So we're going to add a little oil. In class, I added a little olive oil. I'm all out of olive oil here, so I'm adding just a little canola oil. This is just barely coat the pan, because your pancetta does have a lot of fat, right? So once this gets up to heat, we're going to add the pancetta. The fat's going to render, and you really don't need that much oil. The reason why you want some olive oil, though, is it gives the dish a little more depth. So if you have olive oil, use it, please. And we use a little extra virgin olive oil to finish the dish. So when this heats up, we'll start cooking the pancetta. All right, pan's hot. We're going to add pancetta. You should hear a little sizzle. What we're going to do is, you should have like a wooden spoon or even spatula. Love wooden spoons. Something about them. All right, we're going to cook this till it crisp up. If it's getting too black in any areas, make sure you just turn down the heat to medium and cook it low and slow. What we're going to do is render out all the fat, and then we're going to get it nice and crispy, okay? So, it's crispy, right? We don't want any like fattiness. We want to make sure all the fat has some color to it. That way it's super, not chewy, super chewy. There's extra fat in here, you see that? So I got a paper towel, and I'm just going to dab some of it away. We want some of it for flavor, but I mean, Too much fat is too much fat. So look at, we're left with that little bit of fat, right? We'll keep it like that. Next step in cooking process is, if you want garlic, traditionally this doesn't have garlic. I like garlic in it, right? We're gonna add this. I think Gordon Ramsay puts garlic in his. Stir that around a little bit. And then we cook garlic just till you can smell it. We don't want it black or burnt or brown. We could get it brown, but we don't want it burnt, right? So we'll cook it just till we can smell it. And once we can smell it, we'll cook it for like 30 more seconds after we can start smelling it. We're gonna get a little color on it. We deglaze with a little water. And right now, you really don't need to deglaze in this pan because this is a non-stick. But if you have one that sticks with not a non-stick surface, you could deglaze with a little something. This is some white wine. Okay. I'm going to just deglaze with a hit of this, right? And what we do is reduce this. Reduce means we're going to evaporate it. So we'll evaporate this till at least half of this liquid is gone, right? It'll condense the flavors, and then we'll add our cream, and that's the base of our sauce. And we're going to temper it to the egg yolks. Okay, so we've been reducing this. Notice a lot of the liquid gone. It's called reduction. And so then we're going to add a little cream to this. That's it. We're going to stir this around for a little bit. We'll probably let it simmer for about a minute because we don't want to get it too thick, because when we add the egg yolks into it, it's going to even thicken up more, okay? So we'll just simmer this for about, I don't know, 1 minute till all the flavors come together. Then we'll go from there. Our pasta, I'm using Barilla. Whenever you have a chance to make your own fresh pasta, definitely do it. It's night and day difference, right, from what we have at the store. Or if you could buy fresh pasta at the store. Anyways, I showed you just to soak it. So basically, you can put this. We use rigatoni, but this here is fettuccine. And then you just add water to this pan. Cover the pasta. And soak it for, there, it's covered with water. And soak it for 2 hours like this. I prefer it like this because it only takes about a minute to cook after it's all soaked for 2 hours. And the thing is, once again, once you soak it, you can put it in plastic bags without any oil. It's not going to stick because the starch is not activated, right? So after this, after you soak it, just put it in a Ziploc bag, no oil, and it stores for 2-3 days, right? Especially if you have kids, it's all ready to go, and the pasta only takes a minute to blanch. I prefer it like this because when you blanch it only for a minute after it's been soaked, it's perfectly al dente. And al dente means to the tooth. It means it has a little bite to it. It's how pasta should be. So highly recommend doing it this way. All right, pasta's been soaked for 2 hours. It's very flexible, right? Okay, and so after this, we're just going to throw it in the water, blanch it, and we're ready to go for the pasta. Cooking pasta, boiling water, lots of salt. That's how it tastes like the sea, right? That's the only thing that flavors your pasta, that and the very end of the cooking process when you toss it in the sauce, okay? And then take your pasta, throw it in for about a minute, and then we'll go from there. All right, tempering into your eggs, right? This is we just turned off the stove, and we're gonna add a little bit of this hot liquid to this eggs. The reason why we do this is called tempering. We're gonna bring the egg yolks up a little at a time. If we add all the hot liquid, the egg yolks to the hot liquid, what's gonna happen is it's going to curdle. It's gonna start cooking like scrambled eggs, and we don't wanna do that. Once we get this tempered, we just keep on adding hot to hot, or hot to the cold, right? This will help bring up, like I said, to temperature. Then we could just all put it in the pan like that. Okay, that's our sauce. And then this is still off the heat, right? Okay. Then we're gonna add our hot pasta to this, and then turn it on low. And by cooking it on low, the eggs are gonna start coming together. We just need to make sure we stir them and don't cook it too hot or fast, or it's gonna scramble. And we'll show you that next. All right, so I drained my pasta. It's gonna go in. Okay. And we're just gonna turn this on low. Very low. And just bring this up till it gets a little thicker, right? Keep on scraping the bottom of the pan because we don't want the eggs to sit on the bottom and start scrambling. If it looks a little saucy to you, it is because I added a lot of extra cream because I reduced my cream too much and I needed more, to be honest with you. But that's okay. Anyways, this is how you do it. Bring it up slow till it gets a little thicker, and then you have your pasta carbonara. Also, pasta carbonara, remember, it's called carbonara because it's translated for carbon. It has lots of black pepper. Once this comes up to the thickness that you want, taste it for salt. The pancetta is really salty, but you might need to add more salt or more cheese. The more salt or more cheese you add, the more flavor in this pasta, right? But we don't want to add salt till this comes up to the consistency we want. We turn off, then add salt, okay? And or right now we could add cheese. Cheese will happen with help with the thickness also. So if we like shave some cheese straight into this, it'll help thicken it up really good. And that's it. I mean, that's going to be your pasta carbonara. Remember, salt is flavor, so if it tastes a little bland to you, add some kosher salt, and that's it. All right, I seriously simmered this on very low for like 1 more minute, and the eggs are already starting to want to coagulate. You can see starting to chunk up on the bottom a little bit, but before that happens, we're going to save it, and that's your pasta carbonara. Look at very creamy, nice. Okay. There you go. You can top it with a little parsley, make it look better, you know. There you go, carbonara. All right, so we're gonna do garlic bread now. Carbonara is done. We're gonna do garlic bread. It's very fast. We're just gonna show you the emulsification. You could add whatever ingredients you really want into the mix. We did mayonnaise and we do mayonnaise and butter and garlic. That's basically it, right? And then we put it on top of the bread and baked it at 375. But here's the emulsification process. All right, so I'm gonna melt down 1 stick of butter, right? And then we're gonna emulsify that into about, I don't know, 1.5 cups of mayonnaise. So after this is done, we'll show you the emulsification. All right, butter is almost melted all the way. We're gonna turn it off and let it cool down. Like I said, if it's too hot and we try to whisk it into the mayonnaise, it's gonna break the emulsion. At this point, you know what we can do? We can add fresh garlic into here. We didn't do that in class, but this is gonna be great, right? So we have this nice garlic butter. And the only difference I'm gonna do in this demo that we didn't do in class is I'm not gonna put any garlic powder into the mayonnaise this time. You know we had that little package of garlic powder mixed with Parmesan. We'll put Parmesan, but not garlic powder. So it's gonna be fresh garlic and the Parmesan and mayonnaise, and that's it. All right, we have mayonnaise, we have our melted butter, I have some cheap little cheese, and I have some expensive cheese that I'm going to use in this. So mayonnaise is about 1.5 cups, right? We're going to add a whole bunch of cheap little cheese. The more cheese, the better it's going to taste, right? Then if you have nice cheese, might as well grate some of that in there too. Okay. Now here's the thing about this whole garlic spread, is it's emulsification. You could break the mayonnaise if you add the butter too fast or if the butter's too hot, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to start stirring this up. This is that garlic butter, right? We'll just add a little bit at a time. And we whisk it till it comes together. If you add it too fast, you're going to see that it looks like cottage cheese and it's very, very broken, and we don't want that. If it gets too thick, you can add a splash of water. The more fat you add to this, here I added a splash of water in it. The more fat you add to it, the thicker it's going to get. By the way, mayonnaise is made out of egg yolks and oil. It's 1 egg yolk to 8 ounces of oil. Just like a hollandaise, 1 egg yolk to 8 ounces of butter. So if you add any more than 8 ounces to 1 egg yolk, it has a tendency to break, right? So, but this is pretty stabilized, like a Best Foods mayonnaise. They have so many stabilizers in it. It's harder to break, but we still want to go slow. And then we integrate it fully. And that is going to be your spread. You can add chopped parsley to it. We didn't do it in class, but it looks really pretty, right? Make sure there's all these garlic chunks in there. Make sure you get all those, right? And that is going to be your spread for your garlic bread. Bake it at 375. Check it every 8 minutes. I think it took a total of 15 minutes, 16 minutes, something like that. But check it after 8 minutes, because just because your oven says 375 doesn't mean it's at 375. And there you go, garlic bread and carbonara.